Welcome to English Insight. I'm your host, Mark Dietrich. Today's guest is someone who might just be the unexpected hero of the fishing world, Debi DeShon. She's the founder of Mussel Dogs, a unique company that trains highly specialized dogs to sniff out invasive quagga, zebra, and golden mussels on watercraft before they hit our lakes. These dogs are faster, more accurate, and often more trusted than traditional human inspections, and they could play a critical role in protecting our fisheries, lakes, and waterways from irreversible damage. Debi joins us today to talk about how her canine team works, how they're helping speed up the inspection process, and why this approach might be one of the best tools we have to preserve bass fishing and recreational boating for generations to come. Debi, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. So,
Yeah.
to start, can you just give us an overview of Mussel Dogs? Who is
So,
Debi and what are Mussel Dogs?
oh boy, those are two very separate questions. But I guess a little bit about me. I started, I guess, my career uh, as a trainer for dogs in movies and television. I did that for just a little while. And then I got married and moved to Northern California where there aren't many movies. So at that point, I got a job actually working as a handler, detection dogs for schools that found drugs, alcohol, gunpowder, things like that. And I did that I actually still do that, but I was in that for probably about 12 years. And then the mussels came to the western states. And so in about 2008 is when I had heard about the mussels and actually saw a demo of the Fish and Wildlife dog in California. They had put their dogs on the mussels in 2008, got randomly invited to a demonstration about it. So I went and saw it and I was like, well, that's super interesting. And maybe I'll try to train dogs to do that. So that's how it all started. Just like getting a random invite to see a dog demo.
So, were you, as far as you know, one of the first people to do this?
Yeah, at the Department of Fish and Wildlife, it was Department of Fish and Game back then. They were the first ones ever to prove that the dogs could find the mussels utilizing scent detection dogs. And then I'm the first private company to do it.
Is there anybody else doing it now, or are you the main company for Mussel Dogs?
So there are a few other companies that have dogs trained to find mussels. Most of them are nonprofits, like the Working Dogs for Conservation. They're back in the Midwest. And then there's a few other people that like have a dog, but as far as I know, I'm the only like company that does it how I do it.
So, how do you train these dogs? Like, and how good are they at detecting mussels?
So basically, as far as training the dogs, basically we find a absolutely ball crazy dog and teach them a huge game of hide and seek. And in their mind, they're looking for their ball. We've just told them that their dog smells like mussels. And so we do take a specific kind of dog that, like I said, has this desire to just play this game all day long. Part of like when we're actually looking for dogs, we'll do something like we'll take the ball and we'll throw it in some tall grass and see how long they'll hunt for it. And so we're just looking for their desire to just like find that toy over all else. And then once we do that, we just pair the toy with the odor and literally teach them a huge game of hide and seek. Most of our
Where do you
dogs,
find these?
yeah, that's funny as far as going. Most of our dogs are either rescues or they're repurposed. We have a wonderful relationship with Search Dog Foundation that train dogs to obviously find humans in natural disasters, but sometimes and all of their dogs are rescues as well. So that's pretty cool. And so like a dog might not work out for them because they don't like being on the rubble or they do a very strong medical screening for the dogs. The dog might have in a hip x-ray, like the hips might not look fantastic. And so they don't want to put that dog under the stress of like being on rubble and stuff. Whereas we're basically going around a boat on concrete. So it's not like we have to worry, about, we're not making them jump over things or climb things. And so it's a whole lot easier on their body. And so we'll get dogs that fail out of their program and get repurposed into our program.
Awesome. So, how many dogs do you guys currently have working, and how many lakes are you active at?
It seems like an easy question, but it's a little complicated. So we have 15 trained dogs at the moment. The season is just starting up. So some of our lakes don't start until that contract with us don't start until like Memorial Day. So we're not actively there at the moment. But during the season, we will have up to 12 to 15 of the dogs deployed on any given day. Some of the ramps we will have two dogs at because it's so busy. It's too much for one dog. So in those instances, one dog will work for 30 minutes while the other dog's resting, and then that dog B will come out and work for 30 minutes while that dog's resting so that they can be, conserving their energy and actually, do the job all day long. So, yeah.
I imagine it's fun for them, but if you do it for 8 hours, eventually they got to get exhausted. So,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, exactly. And then also we're talking about the summer and the heat and, preserving their energy and but yeah, you have to keep them motivated. You have to keep it fun. You can't make them do this. They have to want to do it. So, if the dog's like, I'm done, then the dog's done. You can't be like, please just three more, So you have to really know, we have to really know our dogs well and do what the dog needs to keep them doing their job well.
now is the dog placed with one handler, or that dog can work with anybody?
Yeah, so in general, what we will do is we will pair a dog with a handler for the season. We pretty much call our handlers keeper of the toys because our dogs just like if you've got the toy and you know what you're doing, they'll kind of work for anybody who knows what they're doing. Again, there might be a pair that's together for the season, but it's not like you'll see like in a police force where like the dog and the handler are paired and that's the team and that's it. My dog's pretty much if you've got the toy and you know what you're doing, they're more than happy to work for you.
How long does it take for them to inspect a average boat?
So for the dog part of an average boat, it's about a minute, less than, yeah, it's not long at all. It's literally the time it takes for the dog to walk around the boat, at a decent pace. Doesn't take very long.
And just from our previous conversations, I know that you are also involved in boat washing. How long does a boat wash take?
So if you're talking about a decon, that is 110% has to do with the boat. So if you have a simple boat that doesn't have any compartments, like it's not going to take you very long at all, maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes. But if you're deconning a very complex boat, it's like you have to flush out every port where water comes out, you have to be flushing that area. So I mean, it could take hours to days to flush. I mean, if there's no mussels on it, it's not going to take days, but it could definitely take hours to do a good job, especially if something's got ballast tanks. You have to fill the ballast tanks up, let it marinate before the water is released again. So it can take quite a while.
I know this is an odd question, but how accurate are your dogs?
So the dogs, if the odor's there, the dogs are going to find it. Like they're super accurate. The question becomes if when the boat shows up. So like let's say there's odor in a ballast tank where it's holding water. So what we would do is we would literally have them turn on their ballast so that it was pushing air out so that the dog could go by and smell the air coming out, right? Instead of it just sitting in the ballast. So it's all a matter of the odor has to be there for the dog to smell it. It has to be available. But if the odor's there, the dogs are going to smell it. So they're absolutely amazing. We have done research, and one of the things that we did was the dog's threshold on the actual velagers, which are microscopic. And we literally had one dog that statistically could find one velager, which is crazy. But of course that's in a laboratory, right? So this isn't one velager in a ballast tank, So we
Can you help me
haven't.
with a velager? What's a velager?
So the velager is basically the microscopic larva. So when an egg and sperm of mussels get together, they form a velager, which is microscopic. And then it's free floating in the water until it starts maturing and becomes a settler in a couple of months. And that's at the point where you'd be able to actually visually see it. Super important. So when we're talking about the boats being clean, drained, and dry, the dry part is because if there's any water on the boat, there could be velagers there. And there's no way for us to know because they're microscopic. So that is absolutely one of the advantages of the dogs is that we have proven that the dogs can find the villager. So if there's some water on the boat and the dog has hit it, then obviously that is a boat that we can't confirm that there are or aren't villagers in this at this point because we don't have a microscope with us, but obviously this is a boat that we want to not let on our waters.
What kind of boats do they most commonly alert on? Is it bass boats or boats with ballast tanks or something else? Houseboats?
So it's I can't answer that question because it's boats with mussels on them. So the dog could care less what kind of a boat it is. It's a boat that has mussels or villagers on it. So it's not a particular kind of boat. So obviously if you have boats that have been in a contaminated lake, then that's the boat that the dog's most likely to alert on. That they don't care.
So you've seen it on every type of boat.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, the boat we actually don't get that many alerts with the dogs. I expect this year we absolutely will because now there's the golden mussel, which is just it's in our backyard. It's a whole new ball game. In the past, like last year, most of our lakes are more in Northern California, like Central Valley and North. The closest lakes that have the mussels were, southern San Diego, Southern California, Lake Piru, south of Bakersfield, basically. And so we didn't get a lot of boats that came from those areas to us, right? Just statistically, we didn't get a whole lot of those boats, and those are the ones that are most likely going to have the mussels on them or from Nevada. Now, this year, with it being the golden mussels, which are right here in the San Joaquin Delta and Sacramento River areas, like now we have trained the dogs on the golden mussel, which is it actually turns out that is a different odor profile than the quagga and zebra mussels were. So now that we do have the dogs trained on that, I absolutely feel like we'll have a whole lot more interest in boats than we have in the past. In the past in California, we had 5 instances where the dogs had alerted and we found mussels on the boats. We had done some work down in Texas where we had more than that, probably I don't know, 10 to 15 range that we had found had alerts on the boats, and then they actually would take the water and test it, and in most of the cases they did find DNA of the mussels in there, so the dogs were accurate. But unless they take a water sample, send it to a lab, get it tested, now we're talking a couple weeks out before we ever even know whether there was the mussel, DNA in there. So, and I'm not saying the dogs are finding the DNA. I'm just saying that was proof that the water had been contaminated with mussels.
So okay, I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but what inspired you to start Mussel Dogs? I think it's just such a unique program. Is it just something that you showed up and you're like, hey, I can do this, no one else is doing it, or where did this?
Yeah. I feel super blessed. Those are in the right time, right place, right time. I saw it. I was like, I think I could, yeah, why not? Let's try to make a company out of this. Again, this is 2008. So this was a while ago. It took me 2 years just to get a permit to get the mussels to train the first dog. So I didn't even have my first dog until 2010. So I had 2 years of learning all about the mussels, going to all the meetings, making relationships with lake managers, because I didn't want to take on a odor or a target is what we call it, a target odor, without understanding where it would be found, how it would be found, like all of the things. And so in the interim, I kind of became an expert on it because I grew up with the industry. Like all the lake managers, everybody was learning about it at the same time because it was brand new to the West Coast. It had been in the Great Lakes like since the 80s, but it was all brand new to us. So, like I said, I feel super blessed that I got in like when everybody else got in. And so I kind of got to grow up with it. And in the meantime, making my company. Like I said, first dog, 2010. I didn't have my first paid thing that I did until 2012, and that was literally 2 weekends. So it's been a long journey to get where I am. But and again, since it was a slow growth in the beginning, I feel like I'm really ready for where we are now and the growth the growth we've had in the last like 5 years has been kind of exponential from like 2 dogs to 4 dogs to 8 dogs. You know what I mean? And so I feel super ready for that just because I did grow nice and slow and was able to like come up with good processes and procedures and making sure that my dogs are, kept motivated and how to teach handlers to do that and all those things.
So, what kind of pushback did you face when you got started, and what are you still facing now from regulatory agencies?
Yeah, I don't get a lot of pushback from the agencies. The hardest part is if we alert on a boat, unless we actually see the mussels, there's kind of no way to know, like for sure. I mean, obviously if there's water in the boat and all that, we could be like, this is highly suspicious and we're not going to let this boat launch. But my challenge, my pushback actually more is that every single lake has different regulations. Every single lake has different requirements or standards. And so we can only work to the standards that we can't hold a boat because we think we should. If an agency's like, no, unless we actually see the physical mussel, like then we'll just mitigate, we'll make sure it's dry and dry the boat and then they can launch. But I can't make the rules. I can only supply the tool, and then we have to follow whatever rules that particular lake asks us to.
So, as far as lakes go, are you approved for most lakes in California, or is it like an individual
It's
thing?
completely individual. Some lakes are run by the county, some lakes are run by the state, some are federal, some are homeowner, alliances. I mean, so every lake is individual, and yeah, and it's up to them.
So, are you approved at a lot of the lakes, or you just have to call before you go, or how does, like, say if we want to go to Lake Berryessa, I don't know if there's mussel dogs there yet or not, but how would that work, like getting you to Lake Berryessa and approving your dogs as a way for us to launch?
So if you're asking, so in general, the way it works in general is the lake hires me. So like right now we're at Lake Sonoma, I will just use Lake Sonoma and Lake Mendocino. We're at Lake Sonoma, Lake Mendocino. During the week, we have humans just inspecting the boats. During the weekends, we have the dogs there as well. And so it sounds like to me what you're asking me is the tournament hired me. Would the lake accept it? And every single lake would have to be asked individually if they accept the dogs or not.
And are tournaments something you've done before? And this isn't just about tournament fishing, it's about the lakes in general, but
Sure.
for this instance, we'll go with tournaments.
Yeah.
Have you
So
worked a tournament?
we've worked tournaments at lakes we already work at. So we haven't like a tournament. We've had tournaments contact us because I know some of the Bureau of Reclamation lakes have said if you have the mussel dogs check it, then we will let you on to do your tournament. But they've contacted me, but I've never actually hooked up with a tournament on the side like that. So in general, it's lakes that already utilize us, and then we know the tournament's coming, and we're set up and ready to get them through, as quickly as we can so that they can launch.
I'm willing to bet this will probably be the first year a tournament will start to contact you then if
Yeah,
they haven't yet.
they've been contacting me, but most of them have been very small ones, and it doesn't make sense for them to utilize us.
Yeah, it's just bringing you to a lake versus setting up an entire wash station, I think is much more logical for everybody
Right. But like you said,
for
we
time
need
and
the
everything
lake
else.
has to accept it, right? The lake has to be like, okay, we accept. And just know that like the boats would still need to be clean, drain, and dry. Even with the dog at this
Absolutely.
point, with the golden mussels, like we would still have them do the dropping the engine, turning on the bilge pump, all the things. And then the dog would give us that extra confidence that like everything's good. Because we know even with all that, there is still a little water somewhere, right? I mean, it's just
It's a
reality.
boat. There's going to
Yeah.
be water, especially if it's
Right. So
in
that
a lake.
dog definitely gives us that extra confidence that everything's good to go.
And I mean, now with tournaments, they go all over. I fish tournaments. I'm, in the Bay Area, but I fished Lake Havasu. I fished Lake Mead, which are infected lakes. And I imagine that's the story of a lot of other boaters, not just tournament fishermen. They've been in these infected waters before. And you're right.
Yeah.
My boat was washed twice before I left the state of Arizona with the hot wash stations that they have. But even at that, I was still quarantined for 30 days. And I understand that's the process. Getting back on topic here, how long does it take you to train these dogs? And like when you added golden mussels, was that just a seamless transition for them? It's something they're used to already?
Yeah, so if I'm taking a brand new dog, again, I'm looking for that like crazy ball crazy dog. So I'm already looking for a specific kind of dog. And then it only takes about 3 to 6 weeks to get them on the odor, recognizing the odor, and ready to go to the next phase, which is basically training in the field. Because truthfully, we can only do so much, not out in the field like boat after boat after boat. And so it does not take that long. 3 to 6 weeks. I've got the dog training in the field as well. As far as the golden mussels, it was super interesting because it was a very unique opportunity because usually you're not adding a new odor to 12 dogs. You know what I mean? And so it was very fun and exciting. And in the dog world, we have human world too, but we have dogs who will generalize and dogs who won't. So we have dogs who are like, yeah, it's close enough. And so then we say, yes, you're right, it is close enough. And they get their toy. And so those dogs like got on the golden mussel very quickly, like within a couple of days. And then remember I was telling you about the dog that we did the threshold testing with that found statistically like one villager when we did threshold testing in the lab. That dog actually took the longest to add the golden mussel to because she was like, nope, it's not it. Nope, I'm not doing it. And you're like, yes, it's okay. We know it's not, but we are telling you it's okay. And she was like, hard no, hard no. And so she's on it now, but it took her the longest to convince it. I know it's not exactly it. It's different, but it's okay. You're allowed to find this as well. So yeah, it was very fun and interesting from a dog training perspective. It was kind of a blast.
That's awesome. So again, I talked to you about this privately, but I really only see the way for inspections to be super accurate is with these dogs. Is there a chance we see you at every major lake? Is that something that is in your guys' capacity and something you want to do?
I mean, yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of dogs. So I mean, it would not be in my capacity to do every single lake. I mean, there are a lot of lakes, like, but
Well, just the major ones that a lot of people visit frequently. Because I know a lot of the lakes, and I think we're going to see it more and more. They're closing for months at a time or doing the 30-day quarantine where you have to bring your boat there for 30 days, tag it, and then wait 30 days to launch. And I understand that's an effective method, but it's not super practical for a lot of people.
so yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, sure. I want everybody to want my dogs, but
I think everybody does. It's just a matter of time before they.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we want the quality up and everything. So even if just me personally, if I sold a dog like to an agency, like I started the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, they wanted to start mussel detection dogs up there. Gosh, it had to have been 8 or 10 years ago. And so I sold them their first dog, trained their first handler, had a 2 year mentoring program and quality program to make sure that everything was good. And that's how I operate because if my name's on something, like I'm not just going to sell you a dog and you're on your own. And people will do that, but I won't, right? Because I want you to be successful. And I also like you, if you don't know what you're doing, you can ruin a dog. Like, they're not
Right, and you can.
machines. They're not robots. Like you have to motivate them correctly. You have to care for them correctly. You have to do all the things. And so I make sure that if my name's on a dog, that I've done everything possible to make sure that that team's going to work out. So there's that. But as far as the way that I work, as far as if somebody hires us, is I do own all of the dogs and then I hire handlers to work my dogs. And so that's why I have those kind of dogs that are like, yeah, I really like you, but if you have the toy, I'll work for you too. Like, whatever. You're the keeper of the toy. As long as you got the toy, let's go. And so that's kind of my attitude, and how I work with my dogs.
Gotcha. And then I saw recently you posted you have an internship program. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So some of our lakes are very seasonal, like Memorial Day to Labor Day. And it's literally like weekends. And so I can't offer somebody a full-time job when I only need you for the weekends. And so it's kind of the perfect opportunity for somebody who's thinking about getting into detection dogs. Conservation detection dogs has become a huge thing, and literally unknowingly I was doing it before it was really even a word. And so it's a really good opportunity for somebody like thinking of getting into that world to come and work one of our dogs for a summer. Obviously with our support, it's a fully trained dog, you know what I mean, and they'll learn a ton. So why not?
Are you teaching them how to train the dogs as well, or just how to work with them?
We're basically training them how to work a dog, but yeah, I mean, obviously, if we have the time and they have the interest and they're willing to come, we have a training facility. They're willing to come and watch. We're constantly training dogs, and truthfully, like every day in the field, like you're even when you're working, like you have to keep the dog motivated. I mean, it's all training. Is you're not just holding a leash and walking behind a dog. Like you're working. You're a team. You're working with the dog. So there's all that. But yeah, I mean, in the internship, there wouldn't be time for me to teach them like how to like find a dog, train a dog, and do all the things. There just wouldn't be the time for that.
And then we have a few more things to close out with. But I notice in the fishing community, a lot of us are feeling kind of defeated when it comes to like tournament fishing. It's something I'm sure you've been around tournaments before. We invest a lot of our time, our money, and our
Sure.
life into this. And, tournaments are getting shut down or moved last minute. I mean, the only real answer I can see is your dogs helping tournament fishing go on. But I was gonna say, what do you have to say to that? Do you think that's something that we'll see you hopefully incorporate with even smaller tournaments? Is that something that's you guys are willing to do or open to doing?
I mean, it is a business. So,
Right.
so if I have to drive 2 hours to be at the lake where you guys are fishing, be set up for a couple hours, check all your boats, drive back 2 hours, I mean, I have to pay somebody to do that for a full day. So, you know what I mean? There is a cost associated with that, obviously. If there was a way for us to figure out, I don't know. I mean, again, it 100% depends on the lake, like what the lake's going to accept, right? So,
I'm
so even
just
if we did something offsite, like, hey, we'll meet you in this Kmart parking lot and do all yours and band your boats and do all that. The only way we could do that is if the next lake you were going to would accept that. So,
I'm just thinking out loud. If you guys had like a centralized location that can service multiple lakes, maybe that would be something that could function.
right.
Where to go there, like you said, and get tagged in an offsite
Right.
location.
So the one thing, since I have you and your audience for a minute, I want to explain my take on why the golden mussels is such an issue and why the lakes are doing what they're doing. And it's because in reality, at the moment, we do not know who has the golden mussels, right? So we know, so in October of last year was when the mussels were first found, and nobody had been looking for the golden mussels. So all of the testing and all of the water testing and eDNA and all that we'd been doing was for quagga and zebra mussels. So in October, we find these golden mussels, and they actually went back and looked at water samples from the area where they were found from a year before with eDNA, which is environmental DNA, and found that the mussels had been there a year before. So these mussels have possibly been being spread for at least a year. So until we test all of the water bodies for an amount of months to determine that they aren't in lakes, like we really can't say where they are. And so that's why everybody's being so stringent and being like, we only want our lake water in our lake, or you have to wait the 30 days. And it it's rough, but I understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Just so the golden mussels in theory have been being spread around for at least a year, as far as we know,
I
because they
think
came
so.
from the Delta, or they didn't
Yes.
come from the Delta, but they're in the Delta right now.
Yeah, so right. So probably the port of Stockton is most likely the first place where they were introduced. Most likely, yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna go a little bit off on just your opinion on stuff. Is the mussels, is it inevitable that these are gonna end up in our lakes, or do you think it's something that's legitimately preventable?
I think it's legitimately preventable. Look what we've done so far. Like they came over from the Great Lakes in 2008, and we don't have any, really quagga mussels and zebra. I mean, there's a couple instances in Northern California, but just a couple. So we have staved them off. It's inevitable, like downstream from where they are. So, like in San Diego area, from like Powell and Havasu and all that, like down the Colorado River, that's how they got to San Diego. So it is inevitable in some places because it's just going to go downstream, and there's not much you can do about that, right? But it is not inevitable everywhere, in my opinion.
Have you seen lakes that were not infected that became infected over time? Like, do you know like what happens to that lake at all, or?
So, yeah, I mean, it completely changes the ecosystem, is what it does. So, once they get in, they're filter feeders, they're super good at it. They filter out all of the nutrients, which basically changes the entire, you know what I mean? It changes who gets to eat the plankton and who eats the next thing on the food chain. And then the whole thing with the clearing up of the water is that now light can penetrate deeper, and that's how we start getting like these awful algal blooms that we didn't have before in that area. So it kind of changes everything. It changes your fishery. It changes what fish are doing well as opposed to others, and just
The number one question that when I talk to people about this that I get asked is this just something that affects the pipes or it affects all the fish or where do we see the most effects? Because what we see a lot publicized is that, oh, it clogs the pipes,
yeah, no,
right?
it yeah.
And that's probably the least of the concern of the invasive mussels. I would guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so the clogging the pipes is probably the thing that we can put the money on, right? So we could put the money on how much it's going to cost for us to have to clean out the pipes to get the water delivered, and that is I mean it's where like the expense of us doing prevention compared to like maintaining infrastructure once we have them is pennies, you know. But yeah, for me it's the environmental, it's the changing of the lake, it's the changing of the fishery, it's all of it.
And then just to close out, is there anything else that I didn't ask you about that you're like, people need to hear this or that I need to hear about the dogs, the mussels, anything?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. Just be super patient, like be super patient right now because everybody's trying their best to mitigate this situation and try to make sure that they're protecting their lake. And the other thing that I do absolutely want to say, especially to boaters, recreational fishing, what have you, is call every lake you're going to go to before you go because everything is changing so quickly right now that they might have a different rule a week and a half from now. So before you load everything up and go all the way somewhere and then just get turned away, like do your homework, read their website, call them, and make sure that you're prepared for whatever their inspection's going to be, so that you can actually get on the water and have a good time.
Debbie, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That wraps up today's episode. I just want to say how much I truly respect Debbie and the incredible work she's done with Mussel Dogs. She's not only dedicated years to protecting our waterways, but she's pioneered a solution that's fast, effective, and rooted in passion. This is a problem that affects all of us, anglers, boaters, and anyone who loves the outdoors. And Debbie has been on the front lines offering a real path forward. On our next episode, we'll be joined by Kate Duquette, the Aquatic Invasive Species Coordinator for the state of Arizona. She's going to walk us through what actually happens when a lake gets infected with invasive mussels, the science, the response, and the long-term impacts. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or confessions, drop them in the comments section below on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on any other platform, you can email me at anglersinsight@gmail.com. What topics do you want to hear me cover next? Let me know either by comments or email. It really helps me keep moving forward with this podcast. Thank you.